friends. Welcome back to our Golden 20s podcast. My name is Sadie, and I'm joined by my co-host Tegan.
Hey.
And happy Halloween, because today's episode is actually dropping exactly on Halloween, which is very fun.
That is fun.
Right?
I love Halloween. I know Sadie does not love it, but I love it. It used to be my favorite holiday. Like, I loved it more than Christmas. At this point in my life, I think Christmas has taken the lead again, but it's still up there.
Yeah. I feel like if you lean into Halloween, it's fun. Like, it can be like cozy and like there's a lot of activities associated to Halloween, like carving pumpkins or corn mazes, like a lot of like actual activities, not just vibes. And I appreciate that. But at the same time, my whole life, I was scared and still am of dressed up people. And that's just kind of obviously a peak part of Halloween. And I'm like, I don't really like this. Like, I don't know. Like, okay, let's actually start. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about setting boundaries and asking for what you want to kind of create your own reality, live your dream life, that sort of thing. That's the main part of the episode. But before we jump into it, let's do a little bit of a recap. I think we can talk about Halloweekend. Tegan can have her moment to shine with her Halloween talk. And then I'll also recap my birthday week, which was last week, because I feel like not Halloween related, but I just have some like things I want to share with you guys, especially if you're single celebrating your birthday. This is something I have talked on the podcast about before, where it's like this, I don't often feel insecure in my singleness, but this is one of the times that I do. So I was like, I'm just going to break it down on the podcast and talk about it. So let's start with a recap on that first. And actually, maybe before we jump into those two specific recaps, the other major moment that happened since we last spoke was 1989. Taylor's version came out. So Tag, wanted to see if you listened, if you have any initial thoughts.
Yeah, I did listen. I thought it sounded good. I thought it sounded very similar to the original, which, is the intended purposes. I've seen some dialogue about how different it sounds, but I didn't really hear anything that noticeable. I thought that Shake It Off sounds so good now, where I used to like that was always just like a skip song for me. And now I'm like, this song's a banger.
I hate Shake It Off with like a fiery passion, where I didn't even listen to it on the new version. I still skipped it. So I'll have to go back now that you're saying this.
It's more like, I don't know, it kind of has a Reputation vibe. It does still sound very similar, but in her vocals, where it's less of like her trying to convince herself to shake it off and more of like, I am shaking it off. Like you hear her laughing at it and stuff. And so I really enjoyed that. The vault songs, I feel okay about. I know that she said she was thinking about swapping out one of them for Blank Space. And I'm like, thank God you didn't, girl, because they're all okay. It takes a while for songs to grow on me. So maybe in a year I'll be like, Slut is my favorite song. But as it stands, I'm like, these are fine. But those are my thoughts.
Same. Yeah, I feel the same way. The one thing, though, I forgot, because I haven't listened to 1989 in a while, I forgot how main character energy it is. Like, I was listening to it. I went out Friday night and Saturday night of Halloweekend, and both times I took the subway downtown. I was listening to 1989 Taylor's version, and I was just like, damn, like these are all like pumped up or like pump up songs. Very like, it does feel very like reinvent yourself, main character energy, and I was really loving that. So I also agree with you where the vault songs, I'm like, these are okay. I like the other songs because, again, they're nostalgic, and I went on a rant a few episodes ago about how much I love nostalgia, especially this time of year. So the new songs obviously don't have that, but I did think they still felt very 1989, and I was like, okay, like these aren't immediate no skip, so yeah, they're fine.
Yeah, it is a great album. Like there's so many hits on it, and I rarely listen to it front to back. I don't have that one on vinyl, And so listening, I was like, damn, this girl was just right in the hits this year. And it did like take me back to that time and place, which was nice.
Yeah. I feel like it had September vibes to me, where I was like, I wish this came out in September because it's like back to
Yeah.
school, like even
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to New York. I'm like, this is the energy of like just moved to a new city. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
New
know.
year,
That was the
new
vibe I
me.
was getting.
Yeah.
Exactly. But whatever, we can still embrace that for October into
Yeah.
November. But okay, there we go. There's our Taylor's version breakdown and thoughts. Speaking of being the main character, this was also the energy I was cultivating for my birthday this year. So I
Mhm.
turned 28 on Monday, October 23rd. And honestly, leading up to my birthday, I was kind of hating everyone, isolating alone in my house because I was just like, everyone's ticking me off. So I'm just not going to interact with people.
Yeah.
That's one thing about me, guys. That's how I sometimes deal with things. So I was just kind of taking it easy, chill vibes. But I decided, you know what? This also, I know not everybody listening is super into astrology, but this is kind of what your season before your birthday is for. Like it's very like restorative,
Mm.
very reflective. And then when it turns to your sign or, your yeah, I guess your sign, like my birthday's the first day of Scorpio season. It's like, okay, bam, Scorpio season, now it's your time to shine. You just spent
Yeah.
the past month or however long recouping your energy and building up for something, and now it's time to do it. So I was really leaning into that through the beginning half of October. And then come the weekend before my birthday, I was like, okay, we are now done hibernating and we are in glow up mode. And I highly, highly suggest this for anyone celebrating their birthday, but I feel like it's especially fun when you are single because it's like reminding yourself that you don't need somebody to spoil you and plan that
Mm.
birthday party for you. Like you can treat yourself, you're still worthy of it, even if you don't have a partner or, somebody to celebrate your actual birthday with. So, what that looked like for me was Friday night. Well, first of all, actually, I did book a birthday dinner a few weeks in advance with two of my best friends, Tegan being one of them. And this just goes to say, book yourself like your own birthday party, your own birthday dinner.
Yeah.
Don't wait for somebody else to do it because then you could just potentially be setting yourself up for disappointment. So, and that's if you're in a relationship or not. Like if you want
Yeah.
something, which is the whole episode actually now that I'm thinking about it, if you
Yeah.
want something, go and get it, make it happen. Especially if it's to celebrate you on your birthday. So I knew I had my birthday dinner Monday. So Friday night before, like the weekend before, I went to the mall. I got a new outfit for my birthday dinner. It helped that I got paid on Friday.
Mm.
So literally got paid, then just literally flushed all that
Spent
money
it.
away. Yeah, I got my nails done, which if you're watching on video, I can show you very quickly. They're like
Mm.
Halloween black, but also I have the one gold sparkly because it's also like birthday.
Yeah.
So I got my nails done, went to the mall, got my outfits. I got a bubble bar from Lush. So then I came home. I had like takeout for dinner, had a bubble bath, watched You've Got Mail, and I was like, this is my ideal night. And then Saturday, I got up, treated myself to a facial. I went to Formula Fig for the first time, which was really great. My skin actually loved it. And I'm
Mm.
like, I need to go back. And then walking from the facial place, like back to the subway, I was like, past this brunch restaurant, and I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to go for brunch, even though I'm by myself. So I did. And it was the best thing ever because I was like, I love brunch. And again, just
Yeah.
because I don't have, a boyfriend to be taking me out to brunch on my birthday doesn't mean that I don't deserve brunch on my birthday. So I was like,
Yeah.
I'm just going for brunch. I did that. And then Sunday just really spent doing the regular weekend chores, but I really focused on like cleaning up my house because it's just very much like kind of like around New Year's, where it's like fresh year, want to feel like a fresh start. And a big part of that
Mm-hmm.
is having a fresh space to wake up on your birthday. So that was really great. And then got to celebrate with Tegan and my other best friend on Monday night. We went for dinner. So it was just like so nice, but wanted to just walk you guys through that, give you a little recap because we all deserve that on our birthdays. And
Yeah.
just want to say no shame in making it happen for yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we're going to get more into this in the main part of the episode, but I mean, it's worth repeating a couple times that if there's something that is important to you, like, the reality is sometimes you've just got to make that happen yourself. And whether that
Yeah.
means you're vocalizing that you want that to happen, whether it's like you're booking the restaurant yourself, or you're booking the facial, or you're paying for the flowers that you want, whatever it is, it's like, if something's important to you, sometimes you've just got to be the one to do it to avoid disappointment.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. And actually, that's so true. On my actual birthday, like I woke up, the only downer was after my glow up weekend, I did wake up with a cold on Monday.
Yeah.
So I was like, seriously, it's go time. Like, this is my out of hibernation. The glow up is done. Here I am. And I was sick. But, anyways, I still went to, there's like a little mall by my house, and I went there on my actual birthday before the dinner and got myself a bouquet of flowers. And I didn't go for like the cheapest one. I went for like the mid price because I was like, it's a
Nice.
special occasion. Why not?
Yeah.
Then I went to Starbucks, got my free drink, went to Sephora, picked up my free birthday gift. Like, I don't know. I feel a few years ago, I was the first year actually I lived on my own and woke up on my birthday. I was like sad about it because I was like, wow, I actually feel lonely. It was also 2020, you know, pandemic, peak pandemic. So it was a lonely and isolating time. But I remember being like, I'm not going to wake up or I'm not going to have somebody wish me a happy birthday when I wake up. I'm probably not going to open gifts on my actual birthday. Like, it was just a lot for me to like wrap my head around. But now I'm like, no, create those opportunities for yourself. So like, buy the flowers, go to Starbucks, like get all your free shit, go to the mall, like use your birthday coupons. Like, yeah, I left the Sephora gift for my actual birthday. So I still got something, you know, on my birthday. Like, I don't know. It was a vibe. So yeah, that was the week. And then we also did some fun stuff for Halloweekend, which was really great. That was actually Tegan's birthday present to me. She got us tickets to this really fun cover band in Toronto. Their name is Dwayne Gretzky. So we went to their Halloween show Saturday night, and that was a lot of fun as well.
Yep. And here we are Sunday recording.
Here we are Sunday.
So it's still Halloweekend for us now as we're recording.
Yeah. And before we went to the show, like, again, just to like recap you guys and paint a scene for you, Tegan was the ultimate host. I feel like we've talked so much about hosting on the podcast, and I'm always like, Tegan's the best host because she actually is. And it was just so cute. The three of us, again, my best friend who went for dinner with us, we all went to the show together. So we went to Tegan's before. We had like a really cute snack spread, really leaning into like the festive snacks. Tegan made like this pumpkin dip. We had apples to dip in it. Like, it was very cozy. We made tea. Like, it was so nice. And then I said to Tegan that it was like a new core memory unlocked where she was also like, I want to make dinner, like make cocktails, then we'll go to the show. So my friend started getting ready, doing her hair, and Tegan and I were in the kitchen just like cooking up chicken, like making a salad, just chatting about life. And I was like, this just felt so nice. Like, already I was having the best day because Tegan's house is so cozy. It was like a beautiful sunny Saturday in October, and I was just like really leaning into the cozy, wholesome vibes. And then we're just cooking in Tegan's kitchen. She's wearing her apron. Like, we're drinking our drinks that she had just shaken up for us, like cooking together. And I was just like, this is just the best vibe. And then we had like a little candlelit dinner. I don't know. It was just so cozy. So again, I feel like we obviously went out after, but I really could have just stayed at your house all night, just us girls. Like, it was just, it was just, again, leaning into the vibe and a really fun way to spend Halloweekend. So, yeah.
I think that if there are people who like don't like Halloween, and this goes for any holiday, what really made me start loving all holidays was just to like go fully in and commit. So it's like, I want to, you know, have a drink. I drink a seltzer every other week. No, for Halloween, we're having like Halloween themed drinks, and we're only watching Halloween movies, and we're only listening to Halloween music. And I feel like for me, that's really made it so I like get really excited for every holiday just to like
Yeah.
cheese it up and be extra about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, but it's like it only comes around once a year. You might as well
Yeah,
enjoy it and embrace it,
exactly.
right? Yeah. I love that. I was going to say it was really fun though to go out on like downtown out somewhere
Yeah.
kind of to a Halloween party because I never do that again, mainly because of my fear of dressed up people and being dressed up myself. Like I just don't typically do that, but I
Yeah.
put on a little cat ear headband, tried my best to, not show up completely like lame, I guess, but it was nice because the band was dressed up, everyone else was
Yeah.
dressed up, and the best part, I went out Friday night too with people from work, and I was saying to Tegan how I felt so old because we were in like prime clubbing district in Toronto, and people were literally like 19, 20 years old. Like I said, I just turned 28. So seeing them, I was like, man, I remember those days so well. Like,
Yeah.
you know, just like scream singing at the top of your lungs with your group of like your girlfriends. So I was feeling again nostalgic, but also just like, wow, I'm so old. Then Saturday night we went out and the band kind of brings out like a little bit older, I'd say, like a more
Yeah.
mature crowd. So people were probably like anywhere from our age to I want to say like even mid 40s maybe.
Yeah.
And it was just such a, again, wholesome vibe. They're dressed up, the band, everyone who came was dressed up. People were there with their friends, but it was like
Yeah.
groups of people, like even like mid 40s, like we were saying, who are just like having the best night dancing. And I was like, this is so great,
Yeah.
like, yeah, it was just such a vibe.
Even in my Uber on the way home, I like went right downtown, like right past Queen Street and King Street on our little jig jog home. And I could see like all the girls waiting outside the bars as I was going home. And I was like, I'm grateful to be going home right now. I'm also grateful like they were all just fully in lingerie.
Yeah.
And I was like, I love this. I love that I get to like see it and still like experience it on my weekend. But I also love that I'm going home to
Yeah.
relax.
Yeah.
But
Like we're
yeah,
home in bed shortly after midnight. I was
yeah,
like, this is the best. Like,
yeah.
so good. Okay, well, let's jump into now the main part of this episode. And I do have a good segue because, kind of going off the whole birthday topic, I really get reflective on my birthday, which I don't think is a surprise to anyone because I'm reflective all the time. But one of the things I've been dealing with is just kind of like, I don't know, I guess around my birthday, thinking about what are my intentions for the coming year? How do I want to change things as I reflect on the past year kind of thing? But also
Mhm.
just it kind of coincides with things I've been talking about in therapy as well. And this episode's actually exactly what I've had on my mind. So two of the intentions, I think I set like four or five, but two of the intentions that I set for my 28th year are rooted in boundaries and asking for what you want. So I thought I'd
Mhm.
share them with you guys quickly. The first one is very self-explanatory and it's just set and respect boundaries for myself. And we're going to get into this more in the main part of the episode, but it's like just because you have boundaries doesn't mean they're effective if you don't actually follow through with them. And that's
Right.
what I've really been learning is a lot of my mental health struggles are just the fact that I don't follow through on my own boundaries. So
Mm.
we're going to stop that for 28. And then the second intention I set is communicate my needs and ask for help. And this is really rooted in never wanting to be like selfish or burden other people. So I just like
Right.
internalize a lot of things. But I'm like, no, I've been seeing how this is not doing me any good. So we need to also communicate these boundaries once we set them and we're following through. So again, that's a little bit of what we're going to be talking about and diving even deeper into in today's episode.
Yep. I love it. I feel like this is a big part of growing up where it's like you
Totally.
learn where to set your boundaries, what they should look like, and how to actually share them in appropriate ways. Because I feel
Yeah.
like there's a lot of like trying to weaponize boundaries when you don't really understand how to properly be explaining them. So hopefully we can sort of get into some specifics of ways you can set boundaries in your life, and then like how to actually be setting them and how maybe not to be setting them.
Yeah, totally. And I think what's so interesting is in the past, we've talked a bit about boundaries, but I feel like it's always in a deep dive of a specific topic. So it's like
Yeah.
we're talking about work. So then it's like, don't forget to set
Right.
your boundaries. But I think talking about it in a generic way, like we are today, it's like this applies to every area of your life. So we are going to talk
Yeah.
a bit about work, but it also like impacts your relationships or should be implemented in your relationships. And this is both romantic relationships, friendships, relationships with your family members. Like you need to have boundaries in every area of your life. And I think too, something that is helping me like frame my thinking around this is viewing boundaries as the way you set the standard for yourself. So it's like,
Yeah.
this is how I want people to treat me. This is how I want, people to view me and perceive me. So therefore, these are my boundaries and this is how I'm going to show up in this friendship. And then you're essentially just asking that person to meet your needs to also, show up in that friendship. So I don't know. I hope that kind of helps you guys also kind of have I don't know, different way of looking at it, but it's like, yeah, you set the standard for what you receive. So make sure you're mindful of what you're actually putting out there.
Yeah. I also think like that you set boundaries with yourself as well. And
Totally.
so part of it, like I guess some of like the goal setting we talk about could be considered boundaries. But I also think it's like on you to be upholding your end of boundaries as well. And then that's a part of it. Like it's one thing to say, I'm not going to, work overtime without getting paid. But then it's also on you to uphold it and that kind of thing. Or if you're like,
Yeah.
I don't want to drink as much as I am, I only want to drink, say, on weekends. It's up to you to like respect that boundary you're setting for yourself. As much as I feel like people think of them as you setting a boundary with another person, it's also could be like completely internal too.
Yeah. And this is the part I'm struggling with so hard.
Right.
Because I'm like, this
hard.
is actually very hard work, and like I'm someone who beats myself up. One of my other intentions actually is to practice being more compassionate with myself, because as soon as I'm very mindful, I'm very like in tune with myself, so I know what my boundaries are and what will make me feel good. But I have a hard time following through with them, and then I get so mad at myself and beat myself up over it, where that's not productive. But I think it goes to show how you are accountable for following through on them as well, not just setting them.
100%. Great. Should we dive into maybe talking about work first? Because at least for me, that was like the most obvious place where I set boundaries. I think because when you're working, it's like you have a contract and, you're paid per the amount of work you're doing and that kind of stuff. So that I think is why it's so easy. Boundaries can obviously be a bit more fuzzy when you're talking about friends or things where there's no contract. It's, just vibes. But, I think for work, an obvious way that I set boundaries is saying like no to things, or asking like not to be involved in things that I don't think I need to be. So it's like additional projects if I have too much on my plate, say like planning social events if you are and like one of the only women at your workplaces, and that's sort of a standard. Setting a boundary is saying nope, I need to focus on my work just like my male colleagues. Even things like I don't want to be in this meeting, it's a waste of my time, I could be doing work. Things like that I think are the most obvious ways to sort of set boundaries at work.
Yeah. I love that so much. And I'm the same way where, and again, it's hard work if you're someone that always says yes to things.
Yeah.
Setting that boundary to say no is very difficult, but it is important to essentially protect your peace at work, protect your mental health, protect your energy so that the work you're producing is focused on what, or your energy is focused on what it needs to be focused on and not the smaller things that people are trying to loop you into. So that resonates with me as well. I think on the opposite hand, I've talked a lot about advocating for yourself at work and using this as a way to grow in your career. And I think this is also falls in the camp of setting boundaries in the sense that, or maybe not even setting boundaries, but just asking for what you want. And what this looks like, is asking to be involved in big projects that are going to either look good on your resume or look good internally to position you for a promotion in the future. And we've also talked about the importance of creating relationships and building relationships with key stakeholders, essentially, who can advocate for you when it does come time to be promoted or, move teams or something like that. So I think also getting in meetings where you can start meeting other people, especially influential people, that's also something that's like asking for what you want. Can I please come to this meeting because I think it's great visibility for me? Or can I please present at this meeting because it's my work? I want to make sure I'm the one presenting it, So I think as much as we're talking about boundaries, I think it's also asking for what you want. And a lot of the time, I think everyone has their own agenda in the workplace. Everyone's trying to get ahead. Everyone's trying to look their best, especially in front of like specific people, like I was just mentioning. But you want to make sure you're also being in those positions in order to get what you want, which might be a raise or a promotion, something like that.
Yep, 100%. Another, I think, obvious example of asking for what you want in the workplace is, salary related. That
Totally.
I mean, I guess, job title too, but that's like a clear example of if you want something and you're not going to ask for it, like it's okay to be frustrated about it, but it's also like you just need to vouch for yourself because no one else is going to do it. If you know you deserve to get paid more and you have like the research to back it up, it's on you to ask for it. It's, it's another conversation if they say no. And we've talked about this in past work-related episodes, but it's on you to ask, I think.
Yeah. And I can tell you guys a personal example of this that I'm dealing with right now, where I'm very frustrated because back in the spring, summer, I took on a whole new department, took on a whole new team. And I was very vocal, again, set the boundary to say, I can only do this if this part of my existing work gets delegated to somebody else. I was vocal about it, set the boundary. And to this day, which is like, I don't know, probably almost 6 months later, or maybe not quite, I'm still doing the work that I said I don't have time to keep doing this if I'm taking on all this new stuff. So first of all, again, I didn't follow through on the boundary and I didn't get a raise for taking on more work. So it's like right now I'm kind of like building the case to ask for a raise because they're clearly going to, and this is every workplace, is they're going to see how much they can push their employees without having to pay them more or, reinvent things in any way, shape, or form. But it's up to you to protect your peace and respect your boundaries and also just, again, set the standard for what is okay and what's not okay. And right now, I'm not being paid to do all of these jobs that I'm currently doing. I vocalize my boundary. Now I just need to follow through on it. So again, I think it's just important for me to share that because I talk about advocating for yourself, but I know it's hard. So yeah.
100%. I was in a similar situation last year where they wanted to give me more like responsibility, I guess, and they were trying to combine like my job with another person's job. So basically they were getting two people's worth of work while only paying for one.
That's exactly what happens to me.
Yeah. And so I was like, I'll do it, but you're going to have to pay me more because I know that the cost is still less than if you were to hire two people. And so they did eventually, but it took like me asking for it and asking for it multiple times with research. And
Yeah.
so it's also like, I guess, a lesson to like know if what you're asking for is what you really want, because you might have to fight for it if you're like,
Yeah.
everyone wants more money, I'm sure. So it's like you've got to be like ready to fight for it and have like, I looked up the statistics of what the average like person in my role was making in Toronto and things like that. And yeah, but it did take like a couple of asks for it to actually become a reality.
Yeah. And I think the important part of that takeaway is you didn't give up and you
Yeah.
kept, fighting for it. So eventually you did get not only what you deserve, but what you wanted and were fighting for. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it, because I'm now in the opposite position where I gave them the benefit of the doubt saying, okay, but if you take this work away, however, I continue doing that work. I didn't ask for more money
Right.
at the beginning. And it's
Yeah.
like, that was the flaw. Obviously, live and learn. But yeah, now I'm in the position of internalizing, getting mad. And it's like, well, I kind of
Right.
accepted this as my reality. And now I'm just having to deal with it. So the good thing is, it's never too late. You can
Mm-hmm.
stand up for yourself at any time and any point, especially if there is a case to be made. And you actually have like something to stand on. Like, I don't think it's
Yeah.
ever too late to stand up. But I think too, these are uncomfortable. So as much as it's hard to follow through on things like we were saying, it's also uncomfortable conversations to have, which I feel people also shy away from
Mm-hmm.
it, especially women. You don't want to stir the pot too much. You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
deal with confrontation. But I think that's a big part of asking for what you want, is being confrontational and learning and getting those social skills to have these difficult conversations, because they're conversations worth having.
Yeah, definitely. I think work wise, another boundary that can be set and that I think is important to set early is like what your work hours look like. Is the
Yeah.
expectation that you're working overtime? How are you compensated for that? Get that in writing so that if you have to have this uncomfortable conversation, it's like, nope, here it is in writing. Also, like, are you being contacted outside of work? What does that look like? Even things like when you're putting focus time in your calendar, what does that mean? Does that mean you cannot be messaged? Does that mean you can only be messaged for urgent things? Does that mean you can be messaged, but you don't want to be in meetings? Like all these little things, I think can be boundaries that you set. And I think it's important to set them early so that it's not like you're having to break bad habits later. If you're working
Yeah.
overtime and saying yes to everything because you're new to the job and you want to make your boss happy, then if a year later you're burnt out and are like, I need to set these boundaries, it's going to be so much worse to then be
Yeah.
trying to break like your team's habits. So that's another big one.
Yeah, totally. Again, it's setting the standard. So it's
Yeah.
like, it's easier if you set the standard from the get-go, but if you don't and you end up in a position like I was just describing, like, again, it's not too late. It's just
Mm-hmm.
easier and something to be mindful of if you're in a position where you're just setting the standard from the get-go.
Yeah, totally.
I think, well, we already mentioned how this is something you can apply to all areas of your life. So, another big one, I think, is dating and also even friendships. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a big part of this is, again, how easy it is for things to internalize when you don't communicate it, when you don't tell your partner or your friend
Yeah.
what you need from them, and you're just expecting them to essentially read your mind and plan that birthday party because that's what you expected and wanted.
Yeah.
So I think it's very much setting boundaries, but also asking for what you want. Like, it's maybe easier at work in the sense that this is, like you said, Tag, something that's like very contractual, where you're agreeing
Mm-hmm.
to something in exchange for money. Therefore, you have, I don't know, a little bit, I don't know, you maybe just feel like it's more normal, or these conversations are
Yeah.
more formalized in the workspace, but they're just as important in your dating relationships and your friendships as well. And I think, again, it's like very much you get what you accept. So it's like if you feel like all of the guys you're going on dates with are complete trash and are doing the bare minimum, it's like maybe the guys are the problem, sure, but maybe
Yeah.
also look at yourself and look at, what are you accepting as a first date? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is that boundary? What is it that you want? And how can you ask for it without being super entitled, but like, how
Yeah.
can you really change that narrative for yourself rather than just accepting the bare minimum as good enough?
Yeah, totally. I follow a TikToker who's been doing this like dating diary series, and she says she will only do dinner first dates. And all the comments are like, how do you find guys who will do that? Like, I can't believe it. I've never been on a dinner first date. And she says, I literally tell them. They say,
Yeah,
would you want to go on a first
exactly.
date? And she said, yes, I like dinner first dates. And she gives them options of restaurants. Or if they say, I was thinking about getting drinks, she says, I don't do drink first dates. I'd prefer to get dinner. Here are some restaurants. And then if they say no, she's like, okay, that's fine. We're not compatible. And that's
Yeah.
life.
Yeah,
Like, it's not personal,
exactly.
it's just her preference. And she's not being rude about it. She's just being open. But literally
Yeah.
every video she posts, she gets comments of people asking, like, how did you manage to find a guy? And it's like, nope, she didn't. She
Yeah.
just trained him. Like, that's
Yeah.
sometimes just the way it is. Even when I got engaged, I was on a trip with a bunch of friends, and a bunch of the girls were like, oh my God, my boyfriend would never propose. How'd you? And I was like, we talked about it.
Hmm.
Like, it's
Yeah.
that simple. Even like on that same trip, we were in Hawaii, and my now husband bought me a flower lei. And they were like, oh my God, I wish that my boyfriend would get me a flower lei. He hasn't bought me anything this whole trip. How'd you find a guy this good? And I was like, I literally just said, I want that.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's kind and he listened to
Yeah.
me and he bought it for me with his own money. So I'm like, that's where the positive is. But I wasn't like hoping that he would read my mind that I wanted this flower lei and then getting mad at
Exactly.
him and like holding a grudge because he didn't.
Yeah.
Because like how are they supposed to know what's important to you? Same like how you don't always know what's important to your partner without
Yeah.
them telling you.
Yeah. And I think like I love your TikTok girl who's going on dates, and she's like in the
Yeah.
beginning of relationships. It goes back to what we were just talking about, where it's like setting the standard from the get-go. Like
Yeah.
that's so important. And I think again, yeah, that's how you're gonna find and attract the types of guys that you want to find and attract. But also I think it is just as important, if not even maybe more important in long-term relationships, to ask for what you want, because I
Mm-hmm.
think you can, if you've been with someone for a long time, and Tag, you can probably speak to this better than I can, things can maybe start to feel lazy, or you guys get so many other things going on in life. As we know, life gets busier and crazier the older that we get. But it's also like, okay, if you've been with someone for 10 years, you're maybe not romancing your relationship the same way you were before you were officially
Mm-hmm.
boyfriend and girlfriend. So it's like, if that's the case in your relationship and you're feeling resentful, or you're feeling like you're holding a grudge, like you were just saying, Tag, it's like, maybe you just need to talk about it. Not maybe, you
Yeah.
do just need to talk about it and communicate what you want. Like, I think like it's important to me if we go on a date once a week or once a month, or I really appreciate it when you buy me flowers. Like, I really appreciate when you do this for me. Like, that sort of thing. I think, again, those might be uncomfortable conversations to have, but they're worthwhile having, because your partner is now set up for success, and you're also reducing friction, you're reducing the internalizing part, you're now no longer
Mm-hmm.
overthinking it. Like, I think especially as girls, we're like overthink everything, where it's like, well, he used to do this, now he doesn't, he must not love me anymore, like, and then we just spiral, we internalize, and it's like, no, he literally just doesn't think about it anymore. You need to tell them that you
Mm-hmm.
still want this.
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of like stresses in early relationships come from like unrealistic expectations, and whether that's from like
Mm.
movies or books or like TikTok videos, whatever the deal is, it's like we're all just human here. No one can read
Yeah.
minds. You need to ask for what you want, ask for what you don't want, whether it's like, I want you to hold my hand when we're out together. I don't like
Yeah.
you to, try and initiate a makeout session when we're at dinner. Or I
Mhm.
like flowers. I don't like flowers. It seems like a waste of money. I'd rather you buy me my favorite snack. Like, whatever it is, it's
Yeah.
just coming down to communication. Now, the problems
Yeah.
arise if you are setting these boundaries and they're being ignored, or you're putting out these
Mhm.
asks and they're being ignored. Even like I've been reading a lot about love bids where it's like silly little things. I think the study was couples who were like sat together and the girl would say, "Oh, look at that bird." And the couples where the man would look at the bird stayed together longer, or if the man didn't. And so it's even
Right.
things like, "Oh, honey, look at this TikTok video." Like, it seems so stupid, but it is like a bid
Mhm.
and asking for attention in that moment. So it's a whole other conversation, I think, if these things are being ignored, and probably a whole other podcast episode. But I did
Yeah.
want to throw that out there too.
Yeah, and I think it's the same in work too, where it's
Yeah.
like if you communicate your boundaries or you're asking for what you want, you're communicating your needs and they're not being met, then it's time
Yeah.
to find a new job. You're not going to be happy here. It's the same in
Yeah.
your relationships where it's like if I'm telling you this is what I need in this relationship and you're not delivering, then obviously I'm not happy and this is like a ticking time bomb essentially.
Yeah.
Like so I'll eventually find somebody who can give me what I need and what I want. So I think that is definitely worth calling out. Is that's the whole
Mm-hmm.
reason we're doing this, is to have healthier relationships and better experiences and higher quality experiences. So if your boundaries and needs aren't being met, that's when you move on and you find what
Mm-hmm.
does fulfill you. And to be honest, I think this actually applies to friendships as well, especially when you're in your 20s and you go through
Yeah.
so many phases with different friends. I think even if you're in a relationship or if you're not, your friends are relationships that you try to navigate regardless. And it can be very tricky because your friends are going about their lives at their own
Mm-hmm.
pace in their own stories. So maybe some of them are getting married, maybe some of them are still single, maybe some of them are moving away and now you have a long distance friendship. But I think, and again, I think it's normal to have these conversations at work. Then it feels normal to have them in your relationship since you spend
Yep.
so much time with your partner and you're trying to build a life with them, whatever. But I also think it's just as worthwhile in your friendships because we need community and we need friendships and,
Mm-hmm.
we need these people in our lives. But if the people you're surrounding yourself with are not accommodating your needs, are not good friends, essentially, at the end of the day, then you're just draining your energy when you're with them or,
Yeah.
they're kind of like an added burden to the already crazy, chaotic life that we lead as adults. So it's like you need to set the boundaries of what you accept from your friends. Again, it's the same
Mm-hmm.
thing as dating, where if you're accepting trash behavior from guys and then wondering why you're only dating trashy guys, the
Yeah.
same could be with your friendships, where if you have trash friends, it's like, well, are you like accepting that behavior from them? So yeah, just something else to think about as well that maybe doesn't come naturally or like isn't somewhere
Mm-hmm.
you think about setting boundaries and following through on those.
Yeah. I also think if you are setting boundaries and doing so in like a respectful way and find that you're being punished for them, that's a red flag and probably a
Yeah.
sign that you're somewhere toxic. And whether that's work, if you're setting your boundaries and then that's like, well, you're taking off this project, so you're not going to be eligible for a bonus, red flag. That's not okay. Same with if you're in a relationship and you say, I don't, like to have a makeout in public. And they're like, I guess I just won't ever touch you then. Red flag. Like,
Yeah.
you're like politely expressing a boundary and then you're being punished. That's not okay. And on the flip side, I did want to say, like, I've seen, like I mentioned, sometimes boundaries being like weaponized or like an
Yeah.
attempt to just like control someone or punish someone. That is not what we're talking about. I also don't think boundaries should be like ultimatums or
Oh,
demands
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
because
That's
that
key.
is toxic. Like there was all the drama around like the Jonah Hill texts that were leaked, right? Where he was saying, I'm setting a boundary by saying you can't wear a bathing suit. That's not a boundary. Like boundaries are
Yeah.
to do with you, not with other people. The boundary would be, I'm saying this makes me uncomfortable. If you continue acting this way, I don't think we can be together. It's not, you're not going to do that anymore. Because, like, it
Yeah.
was just like weaponized therapy talk, which is not great. I
Mhm.
also wanted to say in the workplace, it's also not an excuse to like not do your work because
Yeah.
I think that that will come back to bite you. If you're like, I'm respecting my boundaries because I'm really tired, so I'm just not going to do the work I need to do today. I can foresee that that might be problematic for you. So there is also a line between you're getting, especially in work, you're getting paid for a service. You should probably provide that service within reason. Boundaries aren't like, I need to protect my peace, so I'm not going to go to this meeting I need to be a part on. Like,
Yeah.
that probably won't work out.
Yeah. Totally. No, you bring up such a good point, and that's like so unfortunate. I feel this way about mental health is like it's so great. This is such a conversation and like people are talking about this, but I think then people can use it as an excuse to just behave any way they want to behave. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, now you're just giving this a bad
You're
rep, you know,
ruining it
like,
for everyone.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're ruining it for everyone. Like, and that was something I also wanted to mention was I love all the points you just said, Tag. And something I wanted to add on is how you also need to be respectful of other people's boundaries. So if
Yeah.
your partner is communicating what they need from you in the relationship,
Mm-hmm.
you need to, you know, find a way to discuss it and meet their needs just as much as you're expecting them to meet your needs. Like, as much
Yeah.
as we're saying we want, you know, a really great partner and we want a great to surround ourselves with great friends, we want a great boss and a great team at work. Those are all relationships that you also are an active participant in, and they're
Yeah.
only going to be healthy relationships if you're showing up also, you know, meeting their needs, respecting their boundaries, and
Mm-hmm.
pulling your weight to be a healthy partner, a healthy friend, a healthy employee. If you're not and you're just like, these are my needs, this is my demands, that sort of idea, like nobody's actually going to respect that, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
again, you set the standard. It's very simple. It's like you treat others how you want to be treated, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, that's how you set the standard, and you need
Totally.
to be a good person in order for people to be a good person for you as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. And hold people to it. And if people aren't respecting your boundaries, like we said, that's a sign that they probably don't deserve to be in your life. And that
Hmm.
goes for your job, your relationship, for your friendships. Like it is uncomfortable, but it's better knowing, I think, than,
Yeah.
you know, I guess just
Yeah.
like pulling them along your whole life and suffering or, you know, that kind of thing. And I guess
Exactly.
even I've had people in my life try and set boundaries for me where I'm like, I believe that's an unreasonable boundary. So
Hmm.
I think that that's just a sign that maybe the friendship's over, which is fine too. Like, it's all just a way, I guess, of like exchanging information so that it's more information based than emotional. It's not like you're creating a
Hmm.
story in your head on why they keep, you know, asking you to do more and more, but you're not actually telling them that they're asking too much or whatever it is. So it is kind of complicated. We're
Yeah.
complex beings, I guess, but I think that it is important, especially
Yeah.
as you get older.
Yeah, totally. When you're balancing all these different
Yeah.
relationships, right? And like you're balancing different needs at different times. And, you know, I think that's another thing, not that we need to drag this on even longer, but your needs might change based on certain situations in your life. So if that happens, again, you need to communicate that, especially with your partner, your friends, where it's like, I know typically I can, you know, be there for you in this way, but right now I can't because I'm going through my own stuff. Like that's something, again, you can communicate, and you can't just expect people to read your mind. So I love what you were saying, Tag, where I feel like the best way to summarize this, at least for me, is the simple fact that you create your own reality. So again, what you accept is what you're going to get. How you show up and how you treat others, that's how others are going to show up and how they're going to treat you. And it's like the whole takeaway from this episode, to wrap it up with a bow, is you control what that actually looks like. So if it's, you know, trash friends, trash guys, then you're going to feel like you have a trash life. You know, so if you don't want that, if you're feeling, why are my friends so draining? Why am I only attracting like trash people in my life in every area? Why do I hate my job so much? Stop looking for external reasons, and think, how can I, you know, make this work for me, or how can I essentially communicate this better to get what I need out of these relationships and situations. Like, you create your own reality.
Totally. I love that. I think that's probably a good place to wrap things up for this week. Hopefully you, I don't know, gain some insight, even if it's just like a pep talk that we got you. Like, you're like, I know I need to ask for more money at work. Like, just do it.
That's what that was the pep talk. Every time I show up, I'm like, here, guys, this is what you need to do. And I'm also like, this is what for me as well, because
exactly. And we put out a new episode every Tuesday. They're on all the major podcasting platforms, and they are in video format on Spotify and YouTube. We also have a Patreon page that gets the episodes early, and that's sort of the best way to show your support for the podcast. We don't have ads on any of the episodes currently, so that's the only way we are currently making money from this. And so if you are a passionate listener, definitely check that out. We also have just like some fun free things up there. I know we have some followers there who aren't subscribers yet, so that's also like a fun way to kind of get engaged with the community, I think. We are also on social media at Our Golden 20s on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, Spotify, TikTok, YouTube. We are just all over posting all kinds of craziness. So definitely follow us there. Like always, we have our, DMs open for suggestions, questions, anything like that. We love hearing from you. And so I think that's everything. Thanks for listening.
See you next Tuesday.